Do you want to learn more about throwing a finesse jig? Well, guess what? We're going to talk about that. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of 5 Minute Fish Talk Show, where I have 5 minutes to discuss all things fishing. Now, this show appears every single Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time Zone, so click the red subscribe button below to stay tuned. Hey, go ahead and click that bell down there while you're at it. I just loaded 5 minutes on this timer here, and you know what that means. Boop! It's time to get real, folks. We're talking about something that excites me again, folks.
I'm so excited.
Not coffee. As much as that would be fun to talk about, we're talking about finesse jigs. Why do I like finesse jigs so much? Because I've caught a lot of fish on them. Why have I caught so many fish on them? Because I'm from the Midwest. Why does that matter? Because a lot of the Midwest fish relate to rock, to structure, to so on and so forth. These finesse jigs a lot of times work super well where there's a lot of crawfish. Back where I'm from, there are a lot of crawfish. There's a lot of shallow rock, and they just crawl along it very well. So you're starting to hear a little bit about where I fish these, but let's get into a little bit more detail. Most of the time, a finesse jig is going to work on offshore structure of some type. That doesn't mean you have to be way off the bank by any means. You can fish these shallow, but what I mean is more of like the rocky points, some of the transition banks, some of the ledges, so on and so forth. The reason I like to throw finesse jigs, just like a lot of the baits that I talk about on my channel, I'm predominantly more of a finesse fisherman. I love power fishing, but just based on my fishing styles today, a lot of times I do throw a lot more finesse baits. The reason I do is because it's super natural and you generally catch a lot of fish by doing so. What's great about a finesse jig, however, is this is going to give you still a pretty good opportunity to catch some very, very solid, big fish. I've caught a lot of 3 to 5 pounders on finesse jigs. They just tend to produce big bites, but at the same time, you're going to catch numbers as well. So it's a nice bait to throw if you're looking for, action all day, but having the chances of big fish. So finesse jig, one of my favorite baits. It's one of my I'm more confident in this than a lot of other baits on the market. And like I said, the reason is because it's natural and it really looks like a crawfish underwater, or you can make it look like a bluegill. But it's small, it's compact, and it just works. So what kind of gear do I fish these puppies on? A lot of times I'm going to fish this on like a 7 to 7.3 medium heavy, sometimes a heavy rod. Generally speaking, anywhere from 14 to 16 pound fluorocarbon, sometimes as high as 20, just depending on what kind of cover I'm fishing around. Kind of the just general run-of-the-mill fishing gear. I'll use a high gear ratio reel just because why not? You might as well be able to reel them in quick, not create slack in your line. If you have lower speed reels, in today's age, it's just kind of less common because you want to be able to pick up the line, especially on a long cast, which you can throw these pretty far, and you might get bit 100 feet away. You set that hook. If they come towards you, you'll never catch up to them. So I'll just throw it on high-speed gear, and that'll work well. Now, what sizes do I throw? When I talk about finesse jigs, generally speaking, about 90% of the time I'd say I throw it on a 5/16 ounce jig. Sometimes I'll throw a 7/16, which is closer to that half ounce, right? And that's generally if I'm fishing deeper water or really windy conditions. But 5/16 generally works really well. You can fish it from 0 to 5 feet. You can fish it all the way down to 25 feet, depending on your conditions, and you can have a lot of luck on it. 5/16 is where it's that perfect mix to where it's like you can feel the bottom well, but it's natural down there. It's not like just dropping straight to the bottom and just like holding on a rock. This is going to kind of like wiggle a little bit. The wind and the current's going to move it. It's going to look a lot more natural down there. That's why I like to throw it. Now, the part that I really want to talk about today is the trailers. I don't know why I wanted to talk about this so much, but I feel like the trailers is a part that I really feel is important, because if you start throwing this on something that certain trailers, I feel like I'm less confident in certain trailers than others. I'll put it that way. Now, my number one I'll get to in a second, but generally speaking, some of the things I like to look for are a little bit more finesse. I mean, we're talking about a finesse bait, so you might as well make it a little bit more of that finesse approach. Here's a Zoom Speed Craw. It's got a little bit of that paddle to it to where it's still going to kick a little bit of water. You can throw in a little bit more stained water, but it's natural too. I mean, it's the perfect profile, and it works very well. I've caught a lot of fish on that bait. The other ones are stuff like this. It's got like some antennas, it's got some little paddles. It doesn't really make a lot of action and commotion down there, but it looks natural. It looks like a crayfish. Here's a really, really simple plastic, but this kind of stuff works very well. And then lastly, my number one is a twin tail grub. For some reason, every time I throw a twin tail grub on a finesse jig, I catch fish. And I've caught some really good ones by doing so. It just works so well with this bait. I don't know if it's that it's just because it's super compact and it just pairs up so nicely, but I feel like it just looks super great down there in clear water. These are not causing so much commotion to where fish get, you know, kind of less attracted to them. But you can fish them in stained water too, and you can use some of those dirtier, you know, watercolors, the blacks and blues and so on and so forth. But by and large, they look natural, they fit the bait very well, and it's something that I've just had a lot of luck on. So that's what I like to throw 90% of the time. I got through everything I needed to talk about today, and I just almost had a heart attack. Thank you so very much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them in the comments below. Otherwise, we will catch you next time.